Hey everybody, Dr. Jeff here. I wanted to do a little introduction on the video that you're about to watch. When I was at Growth Summit, I met a young lady by the name of Hannah Brower. Hannah Brower is cross team for me. She is on Team Prosper that is headed by the Cottrells, Rusty and Debbie Cottrell, out of Hawaii. And every Monday night they do a team meeting and they asked me to be a guest on their team meeting. And the topic was obesity and the science of activation and how the two interconnect. Here's the video that we put together.
The honor of introducing Dr. Jeff. So Dr. Jeff and I, we met at Growth Summit. And for those of you who are new and may not know what Growth Summit is, it is the leadership retreat. The honor of introducing Dr. Jeff. So Dr. Jeff and I, we met at Growth Summit. And for those of you who are new and may not know what Growth Summit is, it is the leadership retreat slash growth. It's a growth leadership retreat that LifeVantage brings you on when you hit MC1, which is 10,000 in volume. And so Dr. Jeff and I met there, and there was a lot of people in our Growth Summit. So we didn't get to have like extensive conversations, but I was able to have a brief conversation. I was like, I would love to have you speak. So I reached out to him, and he is gracing us with his presence and his expertise tonight. So I'm going to read you a little bit of his bio. So Dr. Jeffrey I'm butchering it again.
Piccirillo.
Piccirillo is no stranger to network marketing. So he started in Mono V in 2008 and was a six-figure earner. He also rode the wave with Visalis. When leaving Visalis 6 years ago, he vowed never again. I'm sure many of you have heard that. People like never again. But this opportunity was way too big to pass up. He immediately saw alternative medicine practice in Med Spa in Ocala, Florida. He is a board-certified orthopedic surgeon and is considered an expert in regenerative medicine and has studied extensively over the last 5 years in the areas of aesthetics, sexual health, weight loss, and anti-aging. He is proud to bring life-changing technology to the people of Ocala and North Central Florida. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Dr. Jeff.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you so much. You know, it's still every time I do one of these, and I speak a lot for LifeVantage. I speak a lot, cross teams. I'm with Team Heart under Rachel Pekarik and Tara Wilson. But I love to speak and I love to talk about the LifeVantage problems or the LifeVantage products and the problem with our healthcare system, and the fact that we really do have a broken healthcare system. So I'm honored to be able to speak to your team tonight. I think it's interesting. I used to practice orthopedic surgery in Crown Point, Indiana, and have a good friend in Michigan City. And so I'm familiar when you said Portage, I know that's Indiana. And so I've actually been to Portage, Indiana. So it's interesting. I'm going to be speaking, so I'll throw this out here just in case anybody wants to come. I'm going to be speaking in Goshen in July. I was invited at Growth Summit to go speak to the Amish team in Goshen. And so I'm going to spend 3 days in Goshen, and then I'm going to do a live event down in Indianapolis, and then another live event in Chicago. I think it's the second week in July. So if you're interested in that, just reach out to me and I'll give you those dates. Let me go ahead and pull some slides up. A little bit about my story is that as Hannah said, I was not interested in joining LifeVantage. I'll be honest with you. I had somebody approach me last July, and she met me at a Chamber of Commerce meeting and said, "Hey, I think these products that we have would fit perfect in your med spa." And I said, "Okay, well, bring over some stuff. Let me look at it." So she brings it over, and I looked at it, and immediately I could tell that it was network marketing. And I said, "Yeah, I said the products look great, but I said I really don't want to do network marketing again." And she said, "Well, why not?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I did one in 2008, and I did another one in 2012, and I love the idea, and I love talking to people and building a team. But I said I'm 62 years old. I'm thinking about like cutting back, not adding another business to my life." And so she dropped off some information and she said, I would really appreciate if you look at the science and see what you think of the science, because I appreciate your opinion. And so I spent a week and I dove deep into it and really read a bunch of the studies on Protandim. And this was a few days prior to the launch of MindBody. And so, or the announcement of MindBody. So the next Tuesday, she comes back to the office and she says, "So what do you think?" And I said, "I think the products are great. I would definitely take the liquid collagen. I'd take the Protandim." I said, "I'm really intrigued by the NAD." And she said, "So you're going to sign up?" And it's like, maybe as a customer. And she said, "Well, why not?" And it's like, I told you, I'm not sure. I know me. I said, I know if I do this, it's going to be 3 or 4 nights a week doing Zoom meetings. I'm going to go all in. Not sure I want to do that. And so you guys know, the game. So the game is, well, would you get on a three-way call with somebody in my upline? So she puts me on a three-way call with Tara Wilson. Tara and I were in Montevideo together. We were in Hawaii together for the Hawaiian Blue Diamond trip. And we were in Visalis together. And so Tara and I are talking about it. And I said, Tara, I really don't want to do it. And she said, "Well, why not?" And I told her the same thing. "Hey, I'm just not sure at 62, I want to build a team again." And so Tara will admit now, she said, "I knew I was losing you. I knew you were going to walk away." And she said, "I had one card in my hand that I could play, but she said it was risky." And she asked the girl that signed me up, Lindy Ritsu, to step out of the room. And Tara said, "Saturday, we are announcing," she was under an NDA with the company. She said, "Saturday, we are announcing the release of our all natural GLP-1 activator for weight loss." And I went quiet and I said, "All right, how do I sign up?" Because I knew that this was going to be the next billion-dollar product. I knew that we took Visalis from 34 million to $1 billion in 4 years. And so I said, "Yeah, I'm in. Tell me how to do this." And so I jumped in both feet. I found a second nurse practitioner to help run my practice. And I'm doing this more than full time, probably working at 8 to 10 hours a day. So that's why I'm here. And I love the products. I think the science is amazing. So let me go ahead and get started. So you kind of know who I am. The QR code on the screen is to my Instagram, which is the Dr. Jeff Effect. Dr. Jeff Effect, I go by the doctor that hates doctors. I hate our healthcare system. I think we come from a broken healthcare system. And I'm doing everything I can to talk about why our healthcare system is broken and what we can do to improve it. And part of that is to really look at how we can develop our own thoughts on wellness and health, because in our American healthcare system, we really don't have healthcare. What we have in the United States is sick care. So, what do you think are the main problems in the United States with our healthcare system? And I kind of alluded to that. The problem is that it's really not healthcare at all. What we have in the United States is a sick care system. Your doctor, believe it or not, has no interest in your health. Matter of fact, if he gets you healthy, he loses a patient because you won't come back in for your sickness. So he has no interest in doing anything to promote your health. If you come in with an illness, he'll give you a big pharma prescription to take care of your illness. But never once will he talk about your health. Never once will he address the root cause of any of your illnesses. They're not interested in root cause. I find it incredible that there are 220 known diseases. If you look at the words oxidative stress on PubMed, you can find 220 diseases that are linked to oxidative stress. But a doctor's never going to bring up the fact that if you can lower oxidative stress, you can make yourself overall more healthy. That's a problem. And so that's probably the second big problem. One is we live in a system that's based on sickness, not on health. And they won't address what things we can do to become more healthy. So this is what oxidative stress is. And I like to use the analogy of a tomato. If you let a tomato sit outside the refrigerator too long, it's going to start turning brown and soft. And then over time, it's gonna rot. Well, your cells do the same thing. When your cells are exposed to oxidative stress, your cells start to die early. And so they get attacked by the free radicals. And then with oxidative stress, the cells start to die. Well, if you can stop that cell death, then you can stop the disease processes. And what are these disease processes? These disease processes are things like neurodegenerative disease. They're things like cancer. They're things like heart disease. And what are the things that are causing our oxidative stress? Well, it's things like air pollution. It's things like secondhand cigarette smoke. But the biggest is our diet, because most of our diet is ultra high processed foods. If we look at people's grocery carts, and I do this every time I go to the grocery store. Matter of fact, my wife still thinks that I'm going to get killed in our local Publix grocery store here in Florida, because I want to ask the people in front of us. We were just there, I think on Sunday, or I guess it was Saturday. Today's Monday. On Saturday, and we're standing in the line in the grocery store, and we have a few things in our cart, and the family in front of us was a family of five. There was three young kids, and mom and dad, and their whole cart was filled with high processed foods, frozen pizza and other frozen foods and bags of chips and soda and everything else that goes with it. And I wanted to ask them, I wanted to say, hey, why is this what's in your grocery cart? Because I know the answer. I know the answer is that it's cheaper than buying food on the outside aisles of the grocery store. I mean, we should be shopping 90% of the time on the outside aisles, fruits and vegetables and meat and dairy, maybe some fresh baked, breads and fresh baked pastries and things if we want a sweet treat. We shouldn't be shopping where the ultra high processed foods are. But a bag of chips is cheaper than a bunch of grapes. A bag of pretzels is cheaper than a bag of oranges. That's the problem that we have. And all of those foods lead to oxidative stress. And increased oxidative stress then leads to disease. So what can it lead to? It leads to heart disease. It leads to stroke. It leads to dementia. It leads to Parkinson's. It leads to autism spectrum disorder. It leads to stroke. So these are all the problems that are associated by oxidative stress. And it's interesting to understand, it's interesting to know that, people will ask me when they learn that I'm with LifeVantage, they'll say, well, LifeVantage,
No, that's
I've heard a little bit about it. Now, do you guys have an anti-aging
glad that you
product? And I say, we don't have an anti-aging product. We have the anti-aging product. We have the best antioxidant that's known to man. I started this whole thing back in 2008 with an antioxidant product. Monavie was a drink, 19 different fruits made primarily by the acai berry. Acai berry still, a lot of people are still using it today in smoothies and things. It's a great antioxidant, but how does it compare to what we have with LifeVantage? If we look at the analogy that I like to use now are organic blueberries. Organic blueberries are thought to be a great antioxidant. But here's the thing, 1 pint of organic blueberries will neutralize 7,000 free radicals. 1 molecule of superoxide dismutase will neutralize 1 million free radicals. So you have a choice. You can take a pint of organic blueberries, which last time I looked at our local grocery stores, between $6 and $7, and neutralize about 7,000 free radicals. Or you can take 1 Protandim a day and neutralize 1 million per molecule of superoxide dismutase. We know, according to the studies that LifeVantage has done, that we can increase superoxide dismutase by 40% in just 30 days. By doing that in one day, we can neutralize about 18 trillion free radicals. So a pint of organic blueberries or one Protandim? I ask you that question. I know the answer to everybody that's on this call. I see there's 24 people on the call. My guess is all 24 are already taking Protandim NRF2, but we get it. But the problem is we need to make the public get it because that's the biggest problem. Now, if I go back a slide and I talk about what happens with oxidative stress, heart disease, dementia, stroke, cancer. But the other thing that happens is obesity. Obesity is a problem gone wild in the United States. I am one of the poster children. I was 200 pounds in the 8th grade, 265 when I graduated high school, 285 when I graduated college. Now, I was a football player. I played college ball. I played pro ball for 2 years for Tampa Bay, but I've always been a big guy. After I finished my 2 years in the NFL, I went from spending 3 to 4 hours a day in the gym to 3 or 4 hours a day in the library. So everything changed. All my muscle mass went to fat mass. And very quickly, I went from 285 to about 325. If you're 325 pounds and you're a doctor, your patients don't believe you. They don't think that your health is important enough to you. So it's a problem. So if we look at the United States alone, 82% of Americans are overweight. They're looking to try to find a change for their overweight problem. And if we look at obesity, now remember, obesity is 30% above your normal BMI. So 30% above normal. Morbid obesity is 40% above normal. Our obesity rate in the United States right now overall, because we have some healthy states like Colorado, but overall we're at 42%. We have 5 states that are pushing 50%, that are over 48%, with West Virginia being the highest at 49.8. The statistics show that by 2031, so just 6 years from now, 29 states will have an obesity rate of over 50%. So the comparison that I like is I like to look at the 1970s. Now I'm looking at some of the people on the call that have their cameras on, and there's a few of you that maybe remember 1975. 1975, I was 13 years old. So that's 50 years ago. Think about 1975 is 50 years ago from now. Obesity rate was 10%. There was less thyroid disease. There was less problems with early menopause. There was less problems with low testosterone. And autism spectrum disorder didn't even exist. Those of you that are on the call that remember 1975, so 1975, I was probably in 6th or 7th grade. Did we have weird kids in our class? Yeah, we had some strange kids. Did we have autism spectrum disorder? Probably not. Now, when I tell this story, some people will jump on and say, well, maybe it's the vaccinations, and maybe the vaccinations do play a role in that. But the bigger role is the foods that we eat. Our diets considerably changed since 1950 or 1975. There were really very little fast food restaurants. We had a McDonald's 10 miles from the small town I lived in Pennsylvania. Almost all our food was either grown or raised within 50 miles of our home. So we weren't eating a lot of ultra high processed foods. That's what's changed. Cancer rates have gone up since 1975. Cure rates have also gone up. So God bless our American healthcare system and some of the things that research is showing us. But the rates of overall cancer have gone up. We're not preventing the disease. Why? Once again, go back. Our doctors aren't interested in our health. They're interested in our sickness. They're not interested in preventing cancer. They're interested in treating it once you have it. So that's the big problem. This was our diet in 1975. Eggs, fresh cheese, fresh meats, some fresh baked goods, maybe a little bit of pasta. This is what we're eating today. Doritos, soda, fast food hamburgers, donuts, candy. That's the change. I can remember we would get soda pop in little 9-ounce bottles, and my dad would buy cases of 24 different flavors. But it was a treat maybe once or twice a week to get 7 ounces of soda. Very different than today, where some kids are drinking a bottle or maybe two every single day. That's where the problems are arising. So what does this mean? With the obesity problem, the more ultra high processed foods that we eat, the more free radicals that we have. The more free radicals we have, the more oxidative stress. The more oxidative stress, it downregulates the hormones that are responsible for metabolism. Thyroid hormone, testosterone, estrogen, human growth hormone, and GLP-1. That leads to more obesity. The more obesity we have, the more free radicals we have, the more oxidative stress we have. Now we go back to the beginning of the cycle. You can see that you'll never, ever get off the carousel. The article, if you want to write it down at the bottom, Increased Oxidative Stress and Obesity and Its Impact on Metabolic Syndrome, is actually an article that's on PubMed. So if you want to read about the truth behind this vicious cycle, you can read it there. That's where the big problems arise. So here's the key. The key is with LifeVantage, we have a solution to this problem. I've looked deep since I joined LifeVantage back in July. I dove deep into the science behind activation and the science behind the pathology of obesity. And here's the truth of the matter. I have probably lost the same 100 pounds 10 different times since age 25. I'm now 63. So over the last almost 40 years, I've lost probably 1,000 pounds in weight. But the problem is I put it all back on. Why? The reason is nobody's ever addressed the root cause of obesity. The root cause of obesity is oxidative stress, and that leads to depressed GLP-1 levels. So what can lower our GLP-1 levels? So we do have a solution. We have Protandim Nrf2 to help with oxidative stress. And it's my belief that you should never be on these two products separately. I mean, I know people do, and I know that money plays an issue in this, but I personally don't think that anybody should ever be on them separately. So we can treat our oxidative stress. We can lower our oxidative stress, and we can stabilize our hormones that are being lowered, our hormones that we need for metabolism. And we can now, with an activator, raise our natural GLP-1 levels. This has never been available ever in the past. In the past, we would diet. We would do calorie counting. We would do Weight Watchers. We would do, and I've done all of every diet that I'm going to talk about in the next 30 seconds. I have done. We've done Weight Watchers. We've done calorie counting. We've done increased exercise. I've done the cabbage soup diet. I've done the HCG diet. I've done the Atkins diet. I've done keto. I've done carnivore. I did fen-phen. I've done all of them. Here's the issue. You stop the diet and the weight comes back on. So now let's flash forward to 2018. 2018 was a big year because 2018 something got released called Ozempic. Ozempic was going to be the savior. It was helping people that were diabetic lower their blood sugars and lower their hemoglobin A1Cs. And the weight was coming off. So now people are saying, oh, we have a diet product. We have a big pharma product that is going to help with our obesity issue. But that's wrong. Here's why it's wrong. Because when we take a GLP-1 hormone or peptide from an outside source, what we call exogenous in medicine. So in medicine, we have two types of hormones. We have exogenous hormones and endogenous hormones. Endogenous means our body makes the hormone from within and the body utilizes it, i.e., mind-body GLP-1 system. Exogenous is Ozempic, Wegovy, Rybelsus, Mounjaro. It's a hormone in an injection. You give the shot in your belly once a week, and it raises your hormone levels from the outside. But what else does it do? It turns off the body's ability to make it. Because now the body says, hey, we have plenty. We don't need to manufacture GLP-1. We're just going to turn off the system. So as long as you're on it, yeah, you'll lose weight. But what happens on the day that you go off of it? Well, the day you go off of it, the half-life or the amount of hormone that's around over time is about 2 weeks. So in 2 weeks, the half-life is 7 days, which means half the hormone is gone in 7 days. So at 2 weeks, it's completely out of your system. So your levels at that point are zero. So what have the studies shown? The studies have shown now that in the first 2 months after going off the GLP-1 injections, you put about 20% of the weight back on, which means if you lose 80 pounds, you're putting 16 to 20 pounds back on in the first 8 weeks. The National Institute of Health, NIH, just released a study that shows that in the first year after going off the products, 90% of patients put on 66% of their weight. So is this a solution? No. It's a cash grab for big pharma to be able to monetize yo-yo dieting. So now what's going to happen? People are going to go on it for a year. They're going to spend all the money that they have to lose that weight for a year. And then they'll go off of it for a year. They'll save their money. They'll gain their weight to go back on it year 3. And it'll just continue over time until they get fed up with yo-yo dieting. So why is this an issue? Why have I been fighting the same 100 pounds for the last 40 years? Well, the problem is things that lower GLP-1 are yo-yo dieting, are emotional eating. So eating when you're not because you're hungry, but because you're happy, because you're sad, because you're depressed, because you had an awful day at work and you have to stop at McDonald's on the way home. Ultra high processed foods lower GLP-1 levels. So unless we do something to change that paradigm, to raise GLP-1 levels, not for a few weeks while you're on the injectable drug, but forever, the weight will never stay off, no matter what you do, unless you stay on a diet absolutely forever. Most people don't have the willpower to do that. This isn't a willpower issue. Obesity is not a willpower issue. It's not a diet issue. It's not an exercise issue. It is a chronic depression of GLP-1 issue. I'm amazed. And so this is where, and I didn't put any pictures in here, or maybe I did. I think the next one I have, next picture is the one that I think is important. So that's me in the lower left-hand corner. When I started MindBody GLP-1 in October, I was 308 pounds. I'm 236 as of this morning. That's 72 pounds in 7 months. Why is it working? Because it's raising my GLP-1 levels. It's affecting my body, not just in my digestion, but remember, there are GLP-1 levels in our brain. There's GLP-1 levels in the pleasure center of our brain. So now if we can turn off that pleasure center, now we don't eat because we're happy or we're sad or we had a bad day at work. We only eat because we're hungry. I admit I should have joined the group Oreos Anonymous. I had an Oreo addiction. Our son, Jennifer and our son is he's 21 years, he'll be 21 in 2 weeks. And he has a dairy allergy. And believe it or not, one of the few desserts that does not have dairy are Oreos. So we always have had Oreos. We have had Oreos in our house since he was 13 years old. And he would eat a few Oreos, but I would eat 6 or 8 a day. I'd have 2 with my morning coffee. I'd have 2 with lunch. I'd have 2 as an afternoon snack. And I'd have 2 while watching TV at night. They would call my name. If you eat 8 Oreos a day, you're going to be obese. I guarantee it. So I started MindBody GLP-1 on October 12th, the day before my 62nd birthday. And I have been Oreo free for 7 months. It works. If we can control our GLP-1 levels, we can endogenously raise GLP-1 levels, then we can keep weight off. The lady in the picture is part of Team Heart, and I like looking at the rolls underneath her bra top. You can't suck in those rolls. You can't suck in back fat. She knows that I tell this story, but you can see in her before and afters that those rolls are gone. You can't fake that. You can't suck those in. They're not tucked in underneath her bra strap. They're not sucked in. It's real, true weight loss. So with that being said, I think now we have the paradigm shift. We have a way to elevate GLP-1 levels naturally, long term, so we can keep our GLP-1 levels up. Now, the question that I get is, well, what happens when we hit our goal? What happens when we reach the 70, 80, 90, 100, 120, 150 pound goal of weight loss? Then what? Well, we know that these are safe products. We know that they are all plant-based. They're all natural. So we can stay on this forever. It's not a big pharma drug that is associated with diarrhea, constipation, gastroparesis, gallbladder disease, not muscle loss. Remember that big pharma admits in their own studies to 27% muscle loss, which means if you lose 80 pounds, you've lost 25 pounds of muscle. So looking at that, you're lighter, but you're less healthy, because now muscle loss means lower metabolism. So now once you go off of it, the weight's going to come back on. But we have a natural product now without the muscle loss, without the constipation, without the diarrhea, and it's brain protective, it's heart protective, it's kidney protective, it's liver protective. So why not, if you can afford it, stay on it forever? So this is my challenge. My challenge is to talk to people. I mean, we all know what, 10, 20, 30, 50 patients that are overweight and obese. You need to talk to every single one. You need to tell them my story and what my beliefs are. You can have them watch this video, but we can really change people's lives with these 2 products. And I think that it's essential to be on both MindBody GLP-1 and Protandim NRF2, because I think they work in synergy so well that as long as the patient can afford it, they should be on both. You can see my website. So Get Activated with Dr. Jeff is on Facebook. The Dr. Jeff Effect is on Instagram. I would love all you guys to follow me. This is all I have.